Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. As part of your Target Prelims 2022, today we have a very important session. The session is on art and culture, places in news. And you should know one thing, which is that people believe, a lot of aspirants believe that art and culture is static. However, UPSC has proven in the past 3 exams that art and culture is now getting connected to current affairs. And that is why we have taken this initiative this year to make sure that all things related to art and culture which were in the news are covered in the right sense and with the correct approach. Today, I also have a special feature for you, which is that at least 4 to 5 videos you are going to watch with me, because in art and culture, it is important to create a visual reference. A lot of you just read art and culture from any standard book, but believe that that will come or you will start to grasp it. That is technically not true. When you start to visually reference art and culture through pictures, through videos, it becomes better and better. And at least 6 to 7 questions, these are important art forms for which I have videos specifically to create an understanding in your mind. So before I begin, I have a small request, because if you like these sessions, if you're finding it useful, please like, share and subscribe to our channel, because at the end of the day, you should not miss any of these videos because you were not subscribed or you did not press the bell icon. So 25 questions, all dealing with separate aspects of art and culture. Remember, now art and culture has become dynamic. So next time when you go through any magazine, please remember to go through art and culture current affairs also, because it is not now a joke, because it's not static now. It is now dynamic. So let's begin our journey. First question, an interesting one. And what I'm going to do is that through these questions, I'm going to give you a static understanding also, so that we can revise as we go forward. So this session is also about current affairs, but static, standard art and culture also. So let's look at the question. Question number 1. The reclining Buddha was first represented in the Amravati School of Art. The Kusinagar reclining Buddha inside the Parinirvan Stupa is the only sandstone statue of Buddha in this mudra in the Indian subcontinent. We have to find which is correct. Now, if you look at this question automatically, I'll tell you the current affairs first. What is the context of the question? The context of the question is that in Bodh Gaya, for the first time we have the biggest and the largest reclining Buddha statue which was put in. That is the current affairs. However, what it makes relevant is the static portion. And I am going to emphasize this, that every current affairs is linked to a static. So you need to create that relationship. So let's try to decode the question. So unlike places in news where you would not have any referencing or you could not use logic because you need more and more context, here you can use logic. I will show you logic, basic residual knowledge of art and culture, and how to eliminate and come to the answer. So let's look at the sectors and let's look at each and every term. The reclining Buddha was first represented in the Amravati School of Art. Now, first and foremost is you need to know the difference between Amravati, Gandhara and Mathura. And if you know the difference, you will automatically come to the answer. See, Amravati school was rather quite influenced by what is called Hinayanic Buddhism, which is that you find in Amravati School of Art more narrative imagery of Buddha, Buddha through his symbols and not Buddha in his true form. Therefore, when you say that you would have the Buddha imagery in Amravati, it is an issue. While Gandhara and Mathura show Buddha in his true form, either in a stylistic or a naturalistic way, but the point is Amravati would always show Buddha through his symbols. The chakra, the lotus, the what are called khadaun, or the generic mudras of Buddha. So first and foremost thing is you need to be very, very clear that Amravati can't have Buddha imagery straightforward. This is the first catch here, because it is actually Gandhara which is first used and which first used this imagery of reclining Buddha. I'll show you what do I mean by reclining Buddha. See, this is the imagery. This is the longest and the largest reclining Buddha statue which has been made in Bodh Gaya. This is what we mean by reclining Buddha. So the first point is the reclining Buddha imagery can't be in Amravati. Please note this basic difference. You have Buddha, Buddha, Buddha through symbols. Gandhara, Mathura would have Buddha's imagery because they are Mahayanic, where Mahayanic Buddhism believes Buddha is God, therefore represented in idol form. Hinayanic Buddhism believes that Buddha is a good teacher, so he is only reflected through his symbols. This is the basic static which is behind this. So this statement is totally incorrect because of a very basic concept that Amravati could not have Buddha. Now let's look at the second one. The Kusinagar reclining Buddha inside the Parinirvana Stupa is the only sandstone statue of Buddha in this mudra in the Indian subcontinent. Now again, Ajanta, Ellora are two very important caves. And when you go through the Ajanta series, you will realize that the sandstone statue for the first time of reclining Buddha is actually found in Ajanta caves. So this is the two major markers here. First, only. Second, which is more important, is that this mudra is common and specifically known for the last stages of Buddha's lives. So this statement is also incorrect because we have three references of the reclining Buddha now including Bodh Gaya. So here the answer is neither one nor two, both are not correct, but let's look at them. See, cave number 26 of Ajanta actually has the oldest form of reclining Buddha, and I don't need to tell you how this is Gandhara or the influence is Gandhara, but I'll go through it. See, you have the curly hair, you have the elongated ears, you have a stoic face without any expression, and a major influence of Greco-Roman art. That is why Gandhara is where you see the first time Buddha being represented in this way. The second is related to the Kusinagar Stupa. This was actually a very important find during the British period. This stupa at Kusinagar is where Buddha died himself, and it is commemorated by Ashoka by a lot of chaityas and stupas at that point. But later during the Gupta period, a temple was added with the reclining Buddha, showing in his last stages he is now going to get nirvana. And the most important point is it was actually found by Alexander Cunningham later and restored in 1877. This is the second reference. So these are two very major references to reclining Buddha. Please remember, this mudra becomes important. Mudras as such are not important. The hasta mudras, the hand mudras are not important. But this mudra of Buddha becomes extremely important because now it is in the news. So the specific reference to the current affairs is that you have the reclining Buddha being installed at Bodh Gaya in Bihar at the Buddha International Welfare Mission. This is an attempt to again replicate the same type of imagery, and again you can see the curly hair, the elongated ears, the stoic face, half closed eyes. They are still going with the Gandhara type of technique. So this is how we are going to proceed. So you can see we are going to discuss the static. We are also going to discuss the art and culture part of it generally and the current affairs. So I will show you today how every small thing in current affairs becomes important in the context of art and culture. So let's move to the second question. With reference to the 3 Rashmi caves which were recently in the news, consider the following statements. The cave in this complex belongs to both the Jain and Buddhist traditions in India. The Buddhist caves iconography represent the influence of Mahayanic and Vajrayanic Buddhism. The caves are located in Rajmahal Hills in the gorge of river Son. We have to find the correct ones. Now, when it comes to Mauryan art, the most important thing which you can remember is caves. because Mauryan, post-Mauryan art, caves play a very important role. If you know the 2021 paper, you would automatically be able to relate that the 3 Rashmi caves are actually called the Pandavaleni caves. They were given as a part of a very important history plus geography question in 2021 itself. Now we need to go into a step further because we need to expand on it. Now tell me one thing, why are we doing this? We are doing this because accidentally at the 3 Rashmi or the Pandavaleni caves, we have found 3 more caves. So before the monsoon, every time these caves were cleared and the forest around it was cleared, and this time we have again found the officer related to this, ASI officer has actually found 3 more caves, thereby expanding the Pandavaleni caves itself. This is the current affairs context. So every time I am going to give you current affairs context and the static. So let's now deal with each and every statement to understand what is the larger context. The caves in this complex belong to both Jain and Buddhist tradition. Let's mark all of these terms. Buddhist caves iconography is influenced by Mahayanic and Vajrayanic Buddhism, and they are located in Rajmahal Hills in and near River Son. Now this is a problem. Why? Because we need to create an understanding of the geography of that place, the general iconography, and you need to know the significance also. So let's go step by step. First is that the Pandavaleni caves or the 3 Rashmi caves are not even near the Rajmahal Hills area, rather they are in Nasik, and the hill complex itself is the 3 Rashmi. So it's the 3 Rashmi hills in near Nasik where we find the Pandavaleni caves. This is a basic concept which you need to know, Maharashtra sector, because that will allow you to now eliminate this second statement. Now that you know that it is Deccan, Maharashtra in between, not the northern part or the northern tradition of Buddhism, you can now find a catch. The catch is, it says the Buddhist caves iconography represents the influence of Mahayanic and Vajrayanic Buddhism. The catch here is Vajrayanic. See, Vajrayan is actually an offshoot out of Mahayana when Tantricism meets it. So when Tantric processes and practices enter Mahayanic Buddhism, it becomes Vajrayanic. Vajrayanic Buddhism basic area is actually the Bihar, Bengal and the North Indian sector, but more than that, Tibet. That is why Tibet, and if you look at Ladakh or Arunachal, most of the monasteries are Vajrayanic. So the general area of Vajrayanic is not going with the concept of the caves being in Nasik, and generally Pandavaleni caves are at least 200 to 300 years before the rise of Vajrayanic Buddhism. Rather, it is more linked to Mahayanic and Hinayanic caves. So as you know, you have Theravada and Mahasangika. Then Mahasangika splits up into 2, Mahayana and Hinayana, and Mahayanic Buddhism gives birth to Vajrayanic Buddhism. So this statement is incorrect, this statement is incorrect because we are in the wrong geography for Vajrayanic Buddhism. It should be Mahayanic and Hinayanic. On the other hand, this cave complex belongs to both Jain and Buddhist? No, only Buddhist. No Jain caves are here, and this is basic. When you are going to learn caves, you should make a small box, and cave and religion should be the basic thing which you need to learn in art and culture. Again, I am giving you a strategy here to learn something, which is you need to create notes in which boxes are made. Caves and religion is the basic which you need to know. You will automatically get all the answers. We need to find the correct. None of the statements are correct. Just to give you a visual reference, these are called the Pandavaleni caves, and we have found 3 more caves in that same area by the ASI. The imagery here is again of Buddha in the context of sitting Buddha and standing Buddha. This is very common in Mahayanic Buddhism. Hinayanic Buddhism, obviously the caves would not have Buddha himself but stupas because they will use the symbol. More than that, they have very good ornamentation. Very, very beautiful ornamentation in their pillars and again the pillars have a very specific shape which look like the stupa and specifically the Anda and the Hermika complex. So if you know a basic structure of a stupa, you would know you have something called the Anda, Medhi, Hermika and Chhatra. So if you look at this very closely, it gives you a feel of how the Anda and the Hermika sit together. That is why it is a very important architectural expression of Buddhism in Maharashtra, specifically in the Nasik sector. And please do realize one thing, which is that remember the timeline of Buddhism. Why? Because initially a lot of questions used to be asked straight away from Buddhism, Jainism. Now they are going into the subsects and the offshoots. So Mahayanic Buddhism and Hinayanic Buddhism should be totally clear in your mind. Again, I am telling you, Mahayanic Buddhism believes that Buddha is God, always worships through symbols. On the other hand, Hinayanic Buddhism believes that Buddha is a good teacher and they only worship through symbols. That will mostly explain everything. When you find the word Bodhisattva, Mahayanic Buddhism. When you find the word symbols, Hinayanic Buddhism. When you realize you have Tara or Maitreyi and all, these are all Bodhisattvas. So remember this differentiation. Timeline wise, as you know, at the second and the fourth council, the splits are happening. At the first and the third council, we have the books being written, which are called the Tipitakas, the Vinaya, Sutta and the Abhidhamma. At the same time, at the second and the fourth, we have the Theravada school coming out of the Mahasangika, and Mahasangika then becoming in the fourth council the most important division, which is Mahayanic and Hinayanic, and then Mahayanic gives birth to Vajrayanic. I am doing the static with you because I believe that this session should also be about revision. So as we go forward, I am doing static and current affairs both so that you create a good understanding of art and culture. So I hope that these images are helping, and if they are, do subscribe to the channel and like this video if it's helping generally. Okay. Question number 3, an interesting question. It is a Kali Mandir in Bangladesh which was destroyed by the Pakistani forces during their Operation Searchlight in March of 1971. In 1929, the temple complex acquired an additional building for the devotees of the famous Saint Anantamayi and was recently been restored. So the above excerpt describes which of the following temples. So Ramna Kali, Jai Kali, the Josheshwara Ori temple or the Shri Shri Chateshwari Kali temple. So ironically, this question is difficult because you cannot use either logic or you cannot use elimination. So remember one thing, that when it comes to questions related to excerpts, it is a difficult question. Why? Because you can't use basic understanding. You need to have a specific reference for it. Now I'll tell you the current affairs part of it, and then we'll go into the basics of what is Operation Searchlight, what is related to this temple itself. The context is our president recently inaugurated this temple in Bangladesh. It has been restored and was destroyed during a war, and that is why this temple becomes important. So by this time, most of you would have answered it in your mind, or if you don't know, the answer here is Ramna Kali temple, which is near Dhaka itself. And the story behind this temple itself is, and I'll show you the old picture. I have a very old picture for this. This is before 1971. We have a very old picture of this temple, a very beautiful temple with a circular Garbhagriha. If you actually look at it, it's a circular Garbhagriha with a very pointy shikhar made in a little bit of Nagara style, but fifth stage of temple architecture. When you look at it, it's a very beautiful, beautiful temple. Now what happened? What happened is that Operation Searchlight is now linked to the Bangladesh war, 1971 war, and it was based on a lot of different factors. Just to say the cultural differences, how there was discrimination between East and West Pakistan, the Bhola cyclone, and the elections of 1970, the first general election in Pakistan itself, where Mujibur Rahman had won it very comprehensively, and they did not want a prime minister from East Bengal or East Pakistan for West Pakistan, thereby leading to what is called the Operation Searchlight, where there was a lot of communal violence. Even major temples in Bangladesh were burnt, and the West Pakistanis slaughtered the East Pakistanis in huge numbers. And when Pakistan attacked our Bhuj sector, and we'll again see, we did this same reference yesterday in Places in News, but when the Bhuj sector was actually attacked, India got involved, and then we helped the Mukti Bahini to win their independence. Herein lies the context of this temple, because this temple was destroyed during the invasion of West Pakistan over East Pakistan, and this restoration is like a relationship between India and Bangladesh coming together and very beautifully restored. India also contributed to its restoration, but it's a symbol of Indo-Bangladesh relationship and Indo-Bangladesh friendship. So again, Indian President inaugurated it. It is in a very important area, what's called the Ramna Racecourse area near Dhaka. Very important in that regard. So please remember the name. I'm showing you the name again because this you will not find in standard sources linked to the larger international relations. So see how art and culture is getting connected to international relations. And this is again a very important way you learn current affairs, which is to cut across everything. Okay, let's move to the fourth question. Consider the following statements with respect to the Karuppur Kalamkari painting. So, it's about a specific handicraft or skill. Handicraft is something which can be asked in two ways. I'll show you the different type of questions. This is a statement based question. Because it got a GI tag, we are discussing it. That is the current affairs context of it. This same Kalamkari got a GI tag this year. That is why it is important. The Karuppur Kalamkari. So let's read the statements. Again, these questions become a little bit difficult because you need to know the specific reference of them. It has recently received a geographical indication GI tag for the state of Andhra Pradesh. The theme of this painting tradition revolves around social commentary and political satire. Which of the statements are incorrect? Please do read the whole question. Incorrect makes it very, very important. Even after knowing it, you will get it wrong. So keep it simple. We have to now understand the specific reference. As I told you, GI tag. But GI tag is given for a specific state. So either again you know it or you don't know it, because GI, what a lot of students do is they start to learn a lot of irrelevant data. That is why yesterday also and today also I am giving you specific references to GIs which are important, which are linked to the larger art and culture and history and generally international relations or polity sector. So it says it has recently received a geographical indication for the state of Andhra Pradesh. No, it is in Tamil Nadu. So this statement is incorrect. Second, the theme of this painting tradition revolves around social commentary and political satire. Again, totally incorrect because it is actually Hindu mythology. So both statements here are incorrect. Now, how do you learn this? You learn this by creating again a small chain of facts, which is the name, the state and the specific nature, because you need to know the nature of painting tradition, cave tradition specifically. So here one thing you can keep as a thumb rule, that Kalamkari, I cut most of the handicrafts which are either dating before the colonial period or are a very long tradition, they would never be about political commentary or satire, because that is very specific to the British period. What we see is that be it the paintings before the colonial period, before modern India, or generally what was developing during the Mughal period, it will generally be mythological, because that gives them a lot of themes to play with, specifically the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, and that allows them to create a very beautiful painting, and in a way it is also a handicraft. So when you look at it, very beautiful form of painting itself, and there are specific themes such as the Mahabharata or even just basic elements coming out of the Ramayana or the Mahabharata. So it is generally mythological. So please make sure that you are not forgetting this fact. So again, I am repeating because you are going to learn in this session only. If you are putting in these 2 hours, you need to learn with me, because then I don't want you to go and then think about what sir said. You are going to make running notes if you want to, but the most important thing is I am impending, I am saying it again and again because I believe that you can learn it in the class itself. So you have the Karuppur Kalamkari coming from Tamil Nadu, mythological theme. Please remember this clearly. Done? Let's move to the 5th question. Recently, which of the following art forms was used for creating mass awareness on COVID appropriate behavior in collaboration with UNICEF? Bharatnatyam, Putul Nach, Tholu Bomalata, or you have Nautanki. So you have 1 dance, 1 theatre and 2 puppetry. This itself should give you a generic direction in which the examiner has made this question. And the answer here again very simply is Putul Nach. This was in the news again because an Assam based NGO along with UNICEF did a major enactment of COVID appropriate behavior through what is called Putul Nach. Putul Nach is part of what is called rod puppetry. Rod puppetry. So if you, very beautiful. Unfortunately, these forms we don't even know, we don't even care about. But I'll give you the list of puppetry so that you can create an understanding. First is called string puppetry. You have Katputli, Kundei, you have Gombayata and Bombalatam. Now, what is string puppetry? String puppetry happens through what is called a marionette. Should have seen something like this with strings. This is called a marionette. They make it in either a cross form, or you also have what are called triangular marionettes, and these are very important. String puppetry is about controlling the arms and the legs. Mostly the legs are not controlled, but arms and the head. Then you have shadow puppetry, Tholu Bomalata, Ravan Chaya and Togalu Gomayata. The point is, here Ravan Chaya is the most important because it is about the whole Ramayana being enacted through, and it's Rudiya tradition, it's about how the whole Ramayana is told through shadow puppetry. Here the puppets are not 3D but 2D, and you use what is called a standard screen on which you project the shadow. Then you have glove puppetry. Pavakothu, again very beautiful. Pavakothu is about glove puppetry. Glove puppetry is the easiest to do. You can do it yourself. You can wear a sock in your hand and do like this and it becomes a glove puppetry. Glove puppetry has reference as old as in the Indus Valley civilization, but again very important tradition. And last is what is called rod puppetry, Yampuri and Putul Nach. Putul itself, it's a West Bengal tradition. So Putul itself means puppet. So please, again, there are only 10. Here the input is worth the output. If you learn these 10, you will easily be able to eliminate a lot of questions. Because what happens in maths the following, you will have puppet or you will have dance, theatre, puppetry mixed up. This way, just knowing these as puppetry, you can easily get the answer. So as I said, Putul Nach used for a very important cause, which is COVID appropriate behavior. Very beautiful question. More than that, it is teaching you something. These are things which you don't give heed to. Please now note them, because these are 2 marks which you should not lose in the exam because you did not pay attention. Now let's look at the 6th question. With reference to the Meenakari, or you also call this Kundan, there are 2 words which are used, but I am using the Meenakari which was used in the newspaper, which was recently in the news. Consider the following statements. It is the process of painting and coloring the surfaces of metals and ceramics through enameling. It was introduced to India by the Mughals. Raja Man Singh of Mewar was the patron of Meenakari art in 6th century or 16th century rather, Jaipur, 16th century Jaipur. Which of the statements are correct? Now this question, I'll tell you the context and you will automatically realize how art and culture becomes important. The reference is that when our Prime Minister went to the United States of America, he met the US Vice President Kamala Harris, and when he met her, what Prime Minister Narendra Modi gave to Kamala Harris was actually a Meenakari chess piece. I'll show you the chess piece itself. You can buy it also if you want to. This exact Meenakari chess piece was given to Kamala Harris by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and this is a very important reference to a very important tradition which was there during the Mughal period. So again, you would not give this connection a lot of importance, but just a small gift of Meenakari chess set to Kamala Harris becomes very, very important, because this creates the context of it coming in the exam very, very clearly. So let's look at the specific references. It's important. Okay. It is the process of painting and coloring the surface of metals and ceramics through enameling. Totally correct. Enameling means when you start to paste through a process of heating. It was introduced to India by the Mughals. Technically, this tradition is an Iranian tradition. And it was actually brought into India and introduced by the Mughals specifically after the Humayun period, because he was in the Safavid rule. When he came back, he brought a lot of Iranian traditions with him, and this is one of them. And yes, after there was a decline in the center or the core region of the Mughals, in 16th century Jaipur, Raja Man Singh actually adopted this and made it very, very important, and that is why till today it survives as a tradition. So which of the statements are correct? Here all three statements are correct. The point is very, very simple. The question is not important. What is important is you need to learn about this handicraft, because if you don't, it will become a problem. This is a very basic question which can come in the exam, and then you will say, why did UPSC ask this question? UPSC just looked at basic international relations, basic news about a chess set given to Kamala Harris, and they then came up with this question. So this is a very good question because it is very representative of how the examination is going to use art and culture current affairs. So let's move to the 7th question. Consider the following state UT textile: Arunachal Pradesh, Supuntari; Jammu and Kashmir, Kasida; Kerala, Kasavu. Which of the following is correctly matched? Now again, textile is something which you do not give heed to. You don't give a lot of emphasis to. So we need to learn this for a very simple reason, because one of them was in the news related to GI tags. Again, has not been given a GI tag, but because it is linked to a tribe, it becomes important. So the specific reference of current affairs again is that the Aptani tribe produces what is called the Supuntari textile, and Arunachal Pradesh is pushing for the GI tag to it specific to this tribe. So this is totally correctly matched. Then Kasida, everybody knows, the UT of Jammu and Kashmir, extremely important, yes, correctly matched. And Kerala, I think everybody again knows the beautiful saris of Kasavu, which come from Kerala, very beautiful saris. The word Kasavu itself comes from the zari, the golden thread which is used in the border. The word Kasavu comes from there. Again, very, very beautiful, important, and correctly matched. So the answer here is 1, 2 and 3. All three are correctly matched, but I'll show you these textiles so that you can understand them. This is Supuntari, very beautifully made, geometrical patterns linked to the Aptani tribe. On the other hand, this is Kasida. Kasida is a very, very important tradition coming from Kashmir, and more than that, it takes a lot of time. it can be done on cloth, it can be done on different types of ceramics. Kasida is a very important tradition coming from there. At the same time, then you have the Kasavu, dhotis and the saris coming from Kerala. Extremely simplistic but very beautiful, with these very specific golden borders. This is very specific to this sari tradition, and the word itself comes from the golden zari or the embroidery which is done on it. Again, I am giving you as much visual reference as possible because that is important. It creates a specific reference in your mind in the exam. If this session and this small picture comes in your mind, my work is done. Because a lot of you actually don't take interest in art and culture, and that is why people find art and culture extremely difficult. The only thing you actually need is nothing more but only interest. It is your culture. India is about unity in diversity. If you can just take 1% of whatever interest you are taking in other cultures, be it K-pop, be it American culture, if you can just take that 1% and think about these things, Google them, look at them, you will actually realize how beautiful India is, and you need to understand this in this context. Art and culture needs interest, nothing more. So let's move to the 8th question. Here I have a video for you so that you can watch something very important. What I'll do is that there's a narration behind it. Only in this video the narration is a little bit damp. Others are okay. But the more important point is the tradition itself. Again, creating a visual reference for you so that next time when you see these two words, it should create a specific reference. I know you will not go through them on your own. That is why I'm doing it in class. The Langa Mangayar artists who were recently in the news belong to which of the following states? Assam, Gujarat, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh. Again, this question is difficult. It is difficult because no logic or nothing will work. Nothing will work. Either you know these artists, which state they come from, or you don't know them. In the exam, you can call it a quiz question, but technically it isn't. Because when it comes to art and culture, you should know one thing, that every art and cultural form which is going into obscurity is vulnerable or is becoming extinct, automatically becomes important, like environment. If an animal is getting extinct, it is important, then an art form is also very important. So the Langa Mangayar artists, where do they come from? If you know, very good. If you don't, you should know they come from Rajasthan. It's a tradition which both India and Pakistan have. And what I'm going to do is that first I'm going to tell you the specific reference, and then I'm going to show you a video which is going to narrate their general history. They'll be telling you what they actually do, and it will also show their art form. So I hope that you can appreciate this initiative because it is about creating a visual reference for you, and I cannot emphasize enough that you should also like, share and subscribe to our channel. It is important for us. So let's look at the general understanding. See, so these two different artist traditions, you would have seen them in a lot of movies. Highway, if you've seen that movie, you've seen their specific reference. They are a hereditary community of Muslim musicians residing mostly in western Rajasthan, in Jaisalmer and Barmer, and also in Pakistan. This is a tradition which we share. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to show you that video. I'll be in the side. You could hear everything. Once the video is over, I'll come back. But please look at it with a lot of interest because it is an important. They are now becoming more and more vulnerable. There is no further generation which wants to take these traditions forward. Remember one more thing. This is why preservation and conservation of art becomes important and culture becomes important, because they have no real income. They do not want to send their younger generations into the same art form. So let's look at it. Okay.
The Langas and the Mangayars are hereditary musicians of western Rajasthan, living mostly in the villages of Barmer, Jodhpur and Jaisalmer desert areas.
ये जितने हम गुणगान गा रहे हैं और बजा रहे हैं, सब ये देवी देवताओं का ही है। फिर उसके बाद में हमने जो ये राजा महाराजा हैं, उनकी जो गायकी, उनके जो दरबार में रहते थे गाने बजाने वाले, वो उनका चलता आ रहा है।
और वो कहते हैं लोग कि आप तो फोक वाले, वो आप क्लासिकल गाते। ये तो क्लासिकल है नहीं, हमें तो पता है नहीं, हम तो गाते अरे आज तो हमारे घर महादेव जायो, आज तो हमारे घर.
Both the communities have a vast repertoire of folk music integral to their ways of life and living, covering subjects including life cycle, season, rituals, festivals and folklore, which survived mainly because of their close relationship with their judgments or patrons.
बच्चा जब पैदा हुआ उनको हालरिया बोलते हैं, हालरिया। जब थोड़ा सा जवान होता है, शादी के लिए जाते हैं, तो अब उनके ससुराल वालों को खुश करना, जो बारात में जाते हैं उनको भी खुश करना और दूल्हे राजा को भी खुश करना, तो उनके लिए जो बंदड़ा।
बरसात का गाना है, झिरम मेरे बरसे में, यही मंगनियाँ गाते हैं, हम भी गाते हैं। लेकिन सावणी रोई जो हिंडा बोलते हैं ना सावन का, सावणी जेरो माझी रे भादरे वेरो ईंडोरे मोडण जा.
Both Langa and Manganiyar songs are based on some particular melodic structure called ragas, which are mostly time-driven, starting from 4 in the morning till midnight.
ससुराल पहुंच गया तो तोरण होता है लकड़ी का, उसके नीचे खड़ा रहता है, सासू प्रांकने के लिए आती तो उस टाइम तोरनिया गाया जाता है. और शादी फेरो खावे चौरी नीचा उतरे तो मुर्गा नहीं रहा पालम. अरे थे गिया रे देता भला ये आज जोरे थे घना दीवो.
The traditional string instrument of the Langas is Sindhi Saringi, and for the Manganiyars is Kamaicha. This is certainly one of the most important living heritage of the world, and listening to their folk music, bhajan, Sufi and Qawwali at their villages is a musical delight for the world of music lovers.
Okay, so I hope this helps. It creates a certain kind of understanding. As you can see, both communities have different instruments, both have different emphasis, both have their own specific role, and more than that, initially it was based on temple devotional tradition, then it became based on courtly poets, and then it became a tradition as a part of what is called the marriage ceremony. So again, I am doing this for a very specific reason, because you are not going to watch these videos. These are very standard videos available everywhere from the government of India. But again, these two communities, if you see the words, please remember they come from Rajasthan, something which links India and Pakistan in its traditional aspects of marriage. Okay, let's look at the question number 9. Consider the following statements with respect to Durga Puja tradition in Kolkata. Again, I have a small video here for you so that you can understand the importance. The tradition marks the 60-day worship of the goddess Durga across the world, and it has been inscribed into the representative list of tangible cultural heritage of humanity. Which of the statements are correct? Now again, here what I want to check is that, are you reading closely? Are you reading closely? Because if you are, you will automatically eliminate the third statement, or the second statement rather, which is that it has been inscribed into the representative list of the tangible cultural heritage of humanity. This is a very important point because Durga Puja comes under intangible heritage. And this is what UPSC is technically checking. Do you know the basic difference between tangible and intangible? Tangible is anything which you can touch. So the monuments are tangible heritage. Intangible heritage is anything which is a skill, a culture, or has no real form. So this board is tangible. However, what is coming out of my mouth, this language, is intangible. You can't touch the words. So intangibility is a skill or a culture. So the Durga Puja tradition is not part of tangible heritage. It is part of intangible heritage because it's a tradition which is followed across the world, across cities in India, and the Durga Puja in Kolkata has been given the intangible heritage tag this time. That is why it becomes important. That is the current affairs issue. Now, as I said, the second statement automatically gets eliminated because it is based on this word. It is totally incorrect. We have to find the correct. Second is totally wrong. Now, it is a tradition that marks the 60-day worship of goddess Durga across the world. Here, what I want to check and what I really wanted you to do is to look at that 60 days. See, we all, in whichever city we are, would have some form of Durga Puja practice. Now, what I needed to check and what the examination is checking, do you really live and breathe UPSC? Because do you really think that the Durga Puja tradition and the puja goes on for 2 months, 60 days? No. It is a 10-day process. That is why Vijayadashmi, Dashmi 10, Ashtami, Navami 8, 9, 10. So what this was technically checking was that again, are you reading closely? You got excited, okay, Durga Puja, very standard, given in every source, I will get this question correct. But just by looking at these two words, you can automatically eliminate both the statements. So the correct answer here is neither of them is correct. Again, very important, can be made in very different ways. But today I wanted to check two things. Do you really pay attention to what happens around you? Do you pay attention to culture? Do you pay attention to your own heritage? And if you don't, then please start to. Because that is the only way you can actually learn things like this. You live and breathe these traditions and you need to understand that. So, tradition marks 60 days, no 10 days. Here, just one word, tangible from intangible, changes the whole context. So, let's look at what makes the Durga Puja tradition so important and what is the general context about it. Let's watch that. Okay. Just one sec. Yes.
Durga Puja marks the annual autumnal worship in Bengal of the Hindu mother goddess Durga. The season of the goddess, Devi Paksh, begins with the inaugural day of Mahalaya. On this day, the eyes are painted onto the clay images to bring the goddess to life. Durga appears in her divine incarnation as Mahishasur Mardini, created by the gods to kill the evil buffalo demon Mahishasur. This image of the martial goddess is curiously coupled in Bengal with Durga's image as divine mother and daughter, who descends from her heavenly home to her parents' home on earth, along with her 4 children, her sons Ganesh and Kartik, and the daughters Lakshmi and Saraswati. It is in the city of Kolkata that the Durga Puja has taken on its most mammoth scale, fervour and fanfare. The The images of Durga and her family are carefully sculpted over months in the workshops of the clay modelers. The oldest and biggest hub in Kolkata is at Kumartuli. There is extraordinary skill involved in this hereditary craft. The straw-stuffed molds of the goddess's anatomy are layered by workers with alluvial clay, which comes from the river Ganga. It is in these small artisanal workshops that the image comes to life, limb by limb, and magically becomes a living goddess. Made entirely of unfired clay, at the end of the festival the images will return to the water from which they came. Well before the deities emerge from the workshops in their full grandeur, large bamboo scaffoldings fill the streets and parks of the city of Kolkata. Cladded with a variety of material, these spectacular architectural structures, locally called pandal, will serve as the temporary temples of the goddess. The ceremonial worship will begin on Shoshti, the 6th day after Mahalaya, and be carried through over the next 4 days, Shoptami, Ashtami, Navami, and Dashami. The most important historical dimension of the festival lay in its transition from the courtyards of elite homes to the neighborhoods and open public spaces of the city.
Okay, just one sec, yeah. So what I wanted to show you here are two things, which is that first, it is not just the puja itself. It's the whole process from Ma Durga being created out of the alluvial soil of the river Ganga to her going back into it, all non-fired clay, so that she automatically dissolves in the water. It is a very important environmental practice. Pandals have become more and more elaborate based on different green practices, and as he said in the end, the most important aspect of Durga Puja historically has been, it was a very elite form of puja which has now become more egalitarian and has been adopted as a culture of Kolkata itself. And Durga Puja, everybody in some capacity would have generally seen and experienced. If you haven't, you should. It is one of the most beautiful forms of puja which can happen at this point of time in this tradition itself, the Shakti tradition. So again, I hope that these videos are giving you, these are videos actually which India submits to the UNESCO for its selection. So as you saw, it in the beginning says India presents Durga Puja in Kolkata. They are very standard things. Again, you find it online, but again I am showing it to you because I believe that it is important. Okay. Question number 10. Consider the following: Srinagar, Delhi, Jaipur, Mumbai, Hyderabad. Which of the above is our part of UNESCO Creative Cities Network, UCCN? Again, a very standard question, has been coming in different forms and should be known to you. Here the catch is you need to know the list. The odd one out between Srinagar, Delhi, Jaipur, Mumbai and Hyderabad is actually, and again there is no catch here, it's a factual part, is Delhi. Delhi is not part of the UCCN. Srinagar is the latest edition, that is why we are doing it. It is the current affairs context. So here the answer is B. But what is more important is what you learn out of it. That Srinagar has joined the UNESCO Creative Cities Network. Under different categories they are added. So craft and folk art category, the Srinagar city has been added. At the same time, Jaipur has been also added for craft and folk art, Varanasi and Chennai for music, and the other hand, Mumbai for film and Hyderabad for gastronomy, which is food. So here itself, the odd one out was Delhi. Now, a very important point which you need to understand is you need to learn this, because they can give you a statement based question basically based on the concept of what is the specific thing for which they were inscribed into. So I gave you a more realistic question, but a more difficult question would be talking about a city and asking you its specific reference. Okay. Consider the following excerpt. He was an Indian philosopher and a theologian. He composed 72 devotional and meditative hymns like the Shaundarya Lahiri, the Shivananda Lahiri and the Nirvana Shaklam. His four main disciples were Padampada, Totakacharya, Hastamalka and Sureshwara. He propagated what is called Advaita Vedanta and the Dashmi Sampradaya. Now here we have to talk about which of the following the excerpt is talking about. Now one of you or most of you would say that this question is difficult. This question is difficult because you have Sri Aurobindo, Ramanuja, Adi Shankara and Madhavacharya here. All are very important theologians and philosophers, generally known for their works. But there's a catch in this question. The catch, if you are able to understand and pay attention, you will automatically get the answer, which is this. Advaita Vedanta. See, Vedanta, as you know, is part of the 6 schools of philosophy. Vedo ka ant, Vedanta, or what is called Uttar Mimamsa. This is important because it is based on the concept of Advaita. So, as you know, 4 schools, Sankhya, Vaisheshika, Nyaya and Yoga are based on what is called Dvaita. Now, I am going into the specific static portion, then I will come to the current part. So, they are based on what is called Dvaita. Dvaita is what? The differentiation of every creation into 2 things, which is called Prakriti and Purusha. Prakriti means the tangible, the nature. Purusha means the spirit world. When Prakriti and Purusha come together, you get the Jiva. This is basic Dvaita ideology which Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Yoga and Sankhya use. On the other hand, we have 2 schools out of the 6 which don't believe in Dvaita but Advaita, which is one creation, Brahma. Brahma being the creator is the one eternal truth and this differentiation is not accepted. Now, in this differentiation, when it comes to Brahma, there is one thing called Purvamimamsa, the other is called Uttar Mimamsa. Purvamimamsa is nothing but repackaged Vedic Brahmanism, justifies Vedic rituals through different justifications. But Uttar Mimamsa got frustrated by these ritualistic practices and gave rise to what is called Vedanta, reading of Upanishads, discipline and spiritualism is going to give you salvation. That is the larger context. Now the point is, in Uttar Mimamsa or Vedanta, there are 2 very important contributors. First, Adi Shankaracharya and second, Ramanujacharya. And this is the reference here. I'll tell you the difference because the next question is on Ramanujacharya. So I'll talk about the difference between these 2, what is called Vishishta Advaita and Advaita Vedanta. But the point which you need to understand here is that this is a very realistic question. It's a very realistic question because it has been seen that when there's a personality in the news, they ask in this type of question. Now, I have given you subsidiary knowledge about him when it comes to what are the hymns, what are his disciples. If you want to learn them, you learn them. But look for catches, meaning there will always be something which will give you the news and the correct answer. So, why are we discussing about Adi Shankara? Because Adi Shankaracharya, his 12 feet Adi Shankara statue was installed at Kedarnath, and again this is Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The most important point is that this creates a chain of current affairs which makes the static about Adi Shankara very, very important, and Adi Shankaracharya generally specifically becomes important for us. So this news, just a small statue being installed, creates for us an important opportunity to learn about him and also talk about his disciples and his basic understanding. I'll tell you what is Advaita Vedanta and Vishishta Advaita, don't worry about that. But for now, just hold on to these facts. So I hope that you're able to understand why these questions have been asked, because there's a purpose for each and every question. So let's look at the next question and then I'll give you the basic reference. The context is the same. See, consider the following statements with regards to Ramanujacharya. He advocated equality and social justice. He spoke of universal salvation through devotion to God, compassion, humility, equality, mutual respect, which is known as the Sri Vaishnavam Sampradaya. Which of the following is correct? Now again, it's a difficult question because it's talking about the specific ideology and what he advocated for. Next time when you read Ramanujacharya, you have to give attention to this. In the larger context, both statements are correct because yes, he was for equality and justice and social justice. And if this is true, this has to be true because it's talking about humility, equality, mutual respect, which is making these two statements complementary. Again, my role is to tell you how to approach this question. You have to learn these facts. There is no silver bullet that somebody is going to give you a magic potion and you will learn about Adi Shankara or Madhavacharya or Ramanujacharya. You need to learn about them. So the specific reference, as a lot of you would have already figured out, is because of this statue which has recently been installed, and it is again the Prime Minister who has inaugurated this statue of equality in Telangana. It's again very important. You need to know specific details and then I'll come about the differences. 216 feet tall, made out of 5 metals. Remember, metals can also be asked. Gold, silver, copper, brass, zinc. This is among one of the tallest metallic statues in a sitting position in the world, and it also has a proper Upanishadic and Vedic library and other things related to Ramanujacharya. So a very, very beautiful statue. Now let's use this opportunity to revise the difference between Adi Shankaracharya and Ramanujacharya, because Vishishta Advaita of Ramanujacharya and Advaita Vedanta of Adi Shankaracharya are totally different. Try to understand this. See, what he says is called Advaita Vedanta. I am talking about Shankaradeva. That is called monoism. Monoism, and it is called unqualified monoism. On the other hand, the word Vishishta Advaita means qualified monoism. So what is this concept of unqualified and qualified? See, what Shankaradeva argues is that Brahma, who is the creator, when he gives you and me a soul, both of us get the exact same soul, and the characteristics of you and me are not linked to our what is called the basic energy which is inside us, soul. This is again a very heavy concept, but I am bringing it down to the lowest level. So what he argues is that both of us have the same soul. You and me have the same soul. We have no differentiation. So the monoistic aspect, that 1 ounce of Brahma which we have inside us, has no real characteristics. This is the best example for this would be that, for example, there's an operating system. If that operating system is put on a computer, a mobile or a tablet, it has the same interface, it has the same features, nothing changes. The same thing is there in both, which is the pen drive, which is Brahma, if linked to different devices, gives you the same characteristics. On the other hand, you have Ramanujacharya, who talks about what is called Vishishta Advaita, qualified monoism, which is that when Brahma gave you and me souls, it gave it a specific characteristic, and that is what it makes me maybe angry, you very, very jolly, somebody sad. Our souls have characteristics. Thereby, the same analogy of an operating system, when Vishishta Advaita argues that when that pen drive is put into each and every device, it gives it a special feature and a different interface. This is the major difference between Ramanujacharya and Shankaracharya, where it is about everybody being the same at the level of Brahma. On the other hand, Ramanujacharya is arguing, yes, we are the same, but our souls have specific characteristics which give us a specific character, and what we are today is because of that energy and its characteristic. So both are very interesting ways of understanding Advaita, which is the concept of Brahma, but they have their differences. So I hope that you will now never forget this OS analogy and generally the concept of what is called Vishishta Advaita and Advaita. I've used this opportunity to give you this basic static understanding, because 6 schools of philosophy is something which a lot of students actually run away from because of this issue. So let's move to the 13th question. The term Bolan, which was recently in the news, is performed by the Garo tribe on the occasion of the harvesting of the rice crop in Meghalaya. It is a martial arts tradition from Kerala performed on Onam. It is a street theatre art form from Punjab. It is performed during the Ganjan festival, and the performers depict episodes from Hindu mythology in West Bengal. Again, the specific reference of this is linked to the concept of what we call as basic vulnerable art forms. Bolan was in the news because it is an art form, it is a skill which has now become more and more obscure, it is becoming obsolete, and because UPSC is asking questions related to language which are vulnerable, they can always ask questions related to art and culture which are also vulnerable. So remember one thing, that whenever you come across a news or a general current affairs article talking about a vulnerable art form, you would have to actually give a lot of attention to it. So again, a difficult question, because either you know it or you don't know it. All 4 options look correct. Maybe the martial arts you can eliminate because of the fact that you don't have any martial arts coming from Kerala, rather other than Kalripat or Kalripattu. On the other hand, Punjab theatre form we already discussed. Still 2 options are left. It may be a tribal form or Quibilung to West Bengal. But here the answer here is D. It is a very beautiful form, and I'll show you some pictures. See, the actors, what they do is, mostly male, what they do is that they paint their faces. They go across the villages enacting the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. And the problem is, because generally of the pandemic, because of this becoming, see, we don't have the patience. We technically don't have patience in today's generation, because we either fast forward things or we change channels or we just don't care. So if this is happening in and around you, you would not care, because you don't have the patience to sit through the whole process. So these traditions are becoming more and more obscure, because they are based on a very beautiful form of day-to-day, everyday form of enactment and skill. So these people are now facing major crisis because they do not have income, their traditional form is becoming more and more obsolete, and you and me, our generation, does not care. Most of you would have heard this name for the first time. This is the irony of art and culture, and I am using this opportunity to tell you that the irony of art and culture is that most of us only take it as a burden to study art and culture, because we think, why study art and culture? We would rather watch sitcoms from the US or from Korea, but we will not take interest in our own culture. So this is a very important, very important tradition coming from West Bengal. The Ganja or the Shiva Ganjan festival happens in West Bengal. Specific to it, it is about these men going around associated with Shiva, Neel and Dharmaraj, and this is a very week-long process, ends with the Charak Puja, but this Bolan tradition is linked to the festival itself. So again, I am giving you a very important, obscure, vulnerable form, which was again in the news, but you would have not given heed to. So please, I beg you that you need to learn these basic things. They can help you in the exam. All are current affairs, but we don't believe that they are current affairs. Okay. Question number 14. Recently, a 225 feet long Khadi national flag was inaugurated, with regards to which consider the following statements. It is permanently installed in Leh. The flag has been conceptualized and prepared by Khadi and Village Industries Commission for celebrating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. Now again, if you've been going through the news, you would be getting a lot of references to this flag. But now again, it is about knowing a basic thing. Have you got the reference to this flag only once or multiple times? That will give you answer for the first one. Is it permanently installed in Leh? No. It was installed in Leh but then was moved around in different parts of India, and we'll talk about them. This is an incorrect statement. Again, remember one thing which you need to learn for UPSC. When there is a specific reference, you do not automatically presume the generic reference, because UPSC logic does not work like this. So some of you would argue that it was installed in Leh, so the word permanently can be implied out of it. But that is not true, because what you are doing is called overthinking. You are complicating a very simple thing. It was installed in Leh, but it was then moved. Maybe there's a small replica there, but the flag itself has been moving around at different points of time. So this is an incorrect statement, and yes, it is done by the KVIC and Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. The answer here is, which is correct? Only 2. This is the flag. This is the flag. We have the Leh and the Mumbai reference. And if you read the general story about the flag, you will realize that it is actually moving around in India. So the specific reference was that the 5th public display of the national flag was done on 2nd October in Leh. However, this was not the first one, wherein it was displayed later in Hindon Air Base to mark the Air Force Day. At the same time, at the Red Fort on 21st October 2021, marking the completion of 100 crore COVID-19 vaccines. Again, a very important reference to this itself. And it was then displayed at the Gateway of India to mark the General Navy Day. And this is the reference to the Navy Day. So I hope that these visual referencing are creating some form of understanding. Word permanently is not implied in any way or form. Do not confuse yourself, because a lot of students start to dissect the question in such a way that they start to overthink too much, and then they will imply, okay, it was installed in Leh, so permanently may be implied out of it. Maybe because it was the last time it was installed in Leh, so it is still there. Don't. This is the worst way of looking at a question. Try to keep it simple and never presume, if you have a specific fact, never presume the generic fact, because UPSC does not work like that. Okay. Question number 15. The Nizamuddin Basti project has been accorded the special recognition for Sustainable Award and Award for Excellence from the UNESCO. The project was started in 2007 by the Aga Khan Trust for Culture, Archaeological Survey of India, Delhi Urban Heritage Foundation, and the Delhi Municipal Corporation MCD. Now this again is a very good question. We have to find the correct one. Nizamuddin Basti generally is important because it is linked to the Sufi tradition of Nizamuddin Auliya. Amir Khusro sat in the Nizamuddin Basti to actually link it and up with the larger literary tradition of Delhi Sultanate. Amir Khusro, Nizamuddin Auliya, both very, very important, and I hope that you know the reference between Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq and Nizamuddin Auliya, wherein the Dilli Durast concept comes in and the friction between different Sufis and the state itself comes in. But the point is, Nizamuddin Basti, specifically the Durga area, has recently been accorded a major award. Again, it was in the news. It's a very important award, but again, a lot of students will not give heed to it. That is why we are discussing it here today, because this project is about public and private partnership. More than that, how communities come together to develop that area. So, did UNESCO give this award to Nizamuddin Basti? Yes, it did. Remember now for the exam that when there is a special recognition for sustainable award and award for excellence from UNESCO has been given to Nizamuddin Basti sector, and The project has been started, yes, by Aga Khan, which has always gone through. The Humayun's tomb was actually restored by the Aga Khan Trust, and it is still restoring a lot of aspects about the Nizamuddin area itself, and all the other stakeholders came together. So is it correct? Here both the statements are correct because it is true. So why is it important? See, outstanding achievement related to sustainable development and people-public-private partnership, wherein the socio-economic challenges and the general improvement of the health of women, youth, along with restoration of his history is very, very important. So understand this very, very clearly, that when we talk about the larger concept, this becomes important because you will not go through it on your own. This is a very important concept because Nizamuddin Basti is generally important for the larger story of Delhi Sultanate. So here what is happening is, here ancient plus medieval plus current affairs is coming together. Specifically medieval, wherein Delhi Sultanate history, Nizamuddin Auliya, Amir Khusro, all very important personalities coming from the same area. Till today, Nizamuddin Auliya's Dargah is very, very important culturally, visited by each and every person over and above the creed and whatever the religion. Again, this area is very, very important culturally. So an important reference to Nizamuddin Basti project. Remember this award because a lot of awards we don't even know. So we are trying to do that in that regard. Okay. A very standard government scheme. So art and culture plus government scheme. Consider the following statements about Temple 360 portal. It allows access to temple services and packages through digital services. It has been launched by the Ministry of Culture. Now, if it is temple, second statement should automatically be correct. That is an obvious logical conclusion we can understand. That if it's about temple and generally culture, it will be the Ministry of Culture. Now you need to know the specific reference to this portal. Now, Temple 360, this is the context for this whole concept. Temple 360 is actually a new project wherein you can, sitting at your home, see or do darshan of all important temples at any point of time, and it gives you a 360 vision of the whole temple itself. So there are 360-degree cameras which are being installed, wherein you can move around in the temple itself and you can do darshan sitting at your home. In the context of COVID-19 pandemic, it becomes very, very important. So the first statement is incorrect and the second one is correct. So the correct answer here is 2 only. But for me, the question is not important. What is more important is the current affairs part. So please remember, the portal has been launched by the Union Cultural Ministry. More than that, unique portal for devotees to across India have online darshan at any time, at any place. So again, a very important portal linked to art and culture, government scheme, art and culture come together. Also create a reference for that. Again, learn something, please note it down. And my generic request to you is to like and share the session and subscribe to our channel, because it is important for generally for you for not missing any of these sessions which are going to come tomorrow and day after and in the next 1 week. The point is that these small concepts can become a problem in the larger context. So you will not miss these 2 marks because you did not give attention to these things. I am here to make sure that you don't. Okay, let's look at the 17th question. Again, I have a very beautiful video made by The Hindu, very important. Again, it's a difficult question, it's technically a quizish question, but I will again show you a video to create a certain type of understanding for you. Okay, the Narasingha Pettai Nagaswaram, a musical instrument, has recently been accorded a GI tag. Which state does it belong to? Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Kerala, Tamil Nadu. Again, If you know it, you know it. If you don't know it, don't know it. The point is again a GI tag. A lot of you would have learned a lot of GI tags, but you would have been learning different types of different type of flowers or different type of food items. You miss these things which are linked to art and culture. So which state does it come from? It comes from Tamil Nadu, and it's a very important instrument when it comes to Carnatic music, and you would have for sure listened to it. It's an important concept within the marriage tradition in South India and Carnatic music generally. So let's try to understand the instrument, how it is made and what is the specific noise of it. Here again I am creating a specific reference in your mind. This is how you learn art and culture. So next time in the exam if you see this word, you automatically know what I am referring to. Okay, so let's watch the video.
Narasingapete, a village in Tanjavur district of Tamil Nadu, holds an important place in the world of Carnatic music. It is home to the Narasingapete Nagaswaram, a classic wind instrument. Families of artisans who excel in making the Nagaswaram have resided in this village for many years. Now, the Narasingapete Nagaswaram has been granted the geographical indication tag. The Nagaswaram is a wind instrument that is an integral part of Carnatic concerts, weddings, festivals and temple ceremonies. Its sonorous nature draws attention to the performance of temple rituals and social celebrations. The Nagaswaram is made from the wood of Achamaram, a tree known for its sturdy features. In the present day, however, the Nagaswaram makers use the wood from Chettinad's old pillars. The wood needs to be completely dry so that it does not absorb any form of moisture, especially saliva. If the wood absorbs moisture, the sound would change and thereby alter the output of the instrument. Groundnut oil is applied on the instrument to prevent it from breaking. The front portion, which is the onusu or enhancer, is made of vagai wood. The reed, which is called as sivali, is made from a special grass known as korukatatti. This bamboo-sized grass grows on the banks of the Kaveri and the Kolidam. After being harvested from the riverbeds, it is dried and kept aside for a year before being cut into small pieces for making sivali. The sivali is fitted with the instrument to produce the music. The process of shaping the reed into a fine piece is the most difficult. A rope is tied to a small bar erected on the floor, and the other end is tied around the waist of the sivali maker. It has to be constantly pulled to fine-tune the reed by tightening the yarn around it. This takes a toll on the back of the sivali maker. Depending on the size of the Nagaswaram, the sivali used for blowing the instrument is also changed to suit a particular pitch. The instrument has 12 holes, 7 on the side, 2 each on either side, and 1 at the end. The upper hole on the right side is closed with wax to produce pitch-perfect music. Today, Nagaswaram players use a 36-inch long pari-type Nagaswaram. Its predecessor was the timuri, a shorter instrument producing a sharp and high pitch. The making of the instrument may take about 2 days if 3 people work on it. It is usually sold at a base price of Rs 5,000. The makers of the instrument hope that the GI tag will boost trade and help them receive assistance from the government. The GI tag also confers legal protection on the artisans and their products and prevents unauthorized use of the brand name by others.
Okay, so again I hope this at least gives you some type of context. So this is a very peculiar type of instrument, very important in Carnatic music itself. Again, giving you a visual reference, I don't have to learn the number of holes, but the GI tag itself becomes important for this instrument in the larger context. So please try to learn art and culture in this way. This is the strategy. Now let's move to the next question. Again, I have a very short video for you, but it's a very important one for our history and generally military history. With reference to the Amar, Jawan, Jyoti, consider the following statements. The India Gate has the names inscribed of those who fought for the British in the First and the Second World War. Amar, Jawan, Jyoti was constructed after the Indo-Pakistani War of 1971, technically referring to the Bangladesh War itself, in the honor of the martyred and unknown soldiers of Indian Armed Forces who died during this war. Which of the statements are incorrect? Now we know one thing, is or are incorrect, one has to be something dodgy, then only that examiner has given you the incorrect option. Now let's talk about the history of the India Gate. See, India Gate was made by Lutyens himself, made in an arch form to show a lot of Roman grandeur. But there's a catch in this statement, which is First and Second World War. Now try to understand one thing. 1914-18, 1939-45. Now tell me one thing, if the India Gate was made after the Second World War, it means that it was made in either 46 or 47. But we got independence in 1947. So, just by knowing the basic chronology of world history, which is the First and the Second World War, you can realize that it can't be the Second World War because the British is not in the situation to create such big objects itself. So, what the what is called the India Gate itself represent is the First World War, that is true, but it was created for the Third Anglo-Afghan War. So the people who died in the Third Anglo-Afghan War and in the First World War, their names are inscribed on the India Gate itself. This is the generic concept. Later, after independence, we added the marble base on which we had the Amar, Jawan, Jyoti, which is specifically linked to the people who actually lost their life in the Indo-Pakistan War or the Bangladesh War in 1971. So the first statement is totally incorrect because the British did not have the guts to create something as big as the India Gate after the Second World War, when they are the weakest and when their control over India is actually now loosening. And at the same time, the generic reference of Second World War should automatically give you alarm bells because it makes no sense. So the first statement is totally incorrect. The second statement is correct. The answer here is, which of the above is incorrect? Only one. So the point is, why am I talking about the Amar, Jawan, Jyoti? Because recently the war memorial, which was made just in front of the India Gate, also had an Amar, Jawan, Jyoti. And now we technically had doubling, 2 different Amar Jawan Jyotis. This is a fire which is burning across the day, across the night, 365 days, 24/7. So what we actually thought was that why are we commemorating our own soldiers whose names are not even there on the India Gate and keeping the Amar Jawan Jyoti at the India Gate sector. So now what has happened is we have merged the 2 fires into the main Amar Jawan Jyoti, which is in the war memorial where the names are inscribed. So as of 2022, as of today, there's only one Amar Jawan Jyoti which is now shifted to the National War Memorial, and the India Gate one has been now stopped because it was technically commemorating the colonial past. Be it the Anglo-Afghan War or be it the First World War, it was a British war. So why were we commemorating it in that context? And that was the issue. So there, as you can see, the older Amar Jawan Jyoti was merged with the new Amar Jawan Jyoti at the National War Memorial on 21st January 2022. The Amar Jawan Jyoti was merged with the National War Memorial because it did not have the names of the martyrs. At India Gate, only those names were inscribed who had fought for the British in the First World War and the Anglo-Afghan War. Thus, it was a symbol of colonial past. And just to relive this very important moment, I have a small 40-second video for you in the moment this actually happened. So let's watch that. So this is the exact moment at which that is the old Amar Jawan Jyoti fire which is now been merged with the main.
जिसको देख रहे हैं कि अमर जवान ज्योति से लाई गई मशाल की लौ के जरिए अब इस वक्त शहीद स्मारक पर राष्ट्रीय युद्ध स्मारक की लौ को प्रज्वलित किया जा रहा है और इसमें अमर जवान ज्योति की लौ समाहित है.
So this is the exact moment in which this happened. So now the old Amar Jawan Jyoti, where you would have seen the Prime Minister sign the register and give what is his salutations to the martyrs. Now that does not happen. Now it will happen in the National War Memorial. Very important moment. I wanted you to relive it so that there's a very specific reference to it. But remember Amar Jawan Jyoti and the history of India Gate, and automatically what was the significance of this whole system of Amar Jawan Jyoti becomes very, very important. So please remember this specific reference to Bangladesh War, specific reference to India Gate, who is the architect, Lutens, when was it erected, when the shifting of capital was happening, part of the larger Rajpath sector. Remember this very, very clearly. A very basic question can come in and you should know it. Now let's move to the 19th question. The term Homo Kibish 1 was recently in the news. It is, what is it? Is it a human fossil remain, a new Harappan site civilization related to it generally, a new numismatics series, numismatics means coins, or a new Neolithic culture? So is it a fossil remain? Is it a Harappan civilization site or a marker of the civilization itself, or is it a coin, or is it a Neolithic culture? Now this is how world history plus places in news plus ancient plus current affairs come together, because this is actually referring to a human fossil remain of a Homo sapien which was found in Ethiopia, and one of the oldest. This is the skull itself. What has really happened now is that now we believe through the new techniques which are available through science and technology that it is even much older than previously thought, and in the news it was there. Whatever you see in black is actually clay. What you see in this brown is actually what the skull is, found in Ethiopia. It was considered the oldest remain of a Homo sapien, but we have now pushed it even back in prehistory because of the new studies which are coming through. So remember, Homo Kibish 1 is a reference to a human fossil or a human remain linked to prehistory, linked to the larger world history, which is the history, which is called technically anthropology, physical anthropology, Homo sapien, Homo erectus, Homo habilis, and the larger reference to places in news because it is in Ethiopia. Kibish is the area. That is why the name Homo Kibish. Please remember this. Please remember this. These are terms which can come very standard 2 marks question. Easily you can get because of learning this fact. Now let's go to the next question. With reference to the Namda craft, consider the following statements. Namda is a rug made of sheep wool of Himachal Pradesh. The Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship launched a pilot project to revive the Namda craft, and it will enhance the learning of the people through recognition of prior learning. Which of the following are correct? Now here the second statement automatically looks correct, but that is the beauty of knowing the answer. I could easily have changed the ministry or changed the specific reference to skill development, and it would have made this question quite difficult. But the catch here is, what I want you to know is this: not Himachal Pradesh, but in the UT of Jammu and Kashmir, Namda craft, these are very beautiful. So what is correct is only 2 very beautiful rugs which are made, and now it is being added to the skill development project to create more employment. Remember one thing for sure, that in the larger context of what is called art and culture, all art and cultures at this point of time are facing a major issue related to how they can be sustainable in the long run. So if the government is trying to put in certain type of crafts into the skill development project, it becomes important in the context of art and culture, and generally in the context of the larger concept of what we call current affairs based art and culture. Please remember this. A lot of students now need to understand art and culture is now dynamic, not static. Let's move to the 21st question. Again, a very beautiful question based again on how ancient India plus art and culture come with current affairs. And remember one thing, a lot of students believe that they can master art and culture without understanding ancient and medieval. Remember one thing, the generic timeline of ancient and medieval is something on which the whole concept is based. So if you really believe that you cannot just can learn art and culture without doing ancient medieval, then you're fooling yourself, because then you don't know the basic timeline. Then how will you understand what is postmodern art, what is prehistoric art, what do I mean by prehistory, what do I mean by Maurya, what do I mean by post-Maurya? So this is a very important question in that regard. So let's look at it. With reference to the Mangarbani cave paintings, which was recently in the news, consider the following statements. The cave paintings are situated in the sandstone hills of Vindhyas in central India. The paintings give us the earliest evidence of line drawing during the Mesolithic period. Which of these statements are correct? Again, either you know it or you don't know it. So it's a difficult question. It's type of a quiz question. The point is, it's playing with 2 statements, one geography and second which is the feature. So when we talk about the geography sector, the paintings are situated in the sandstone hills of Vindhyas in central India. No. This painting tradition or this cave was actually found in Haryana. So the first statement is incorrect. Second, this cave painting itself is not linked to the Mesolithic period, but it has been now considered the largest Paleolithic site. And now this is the point. If you don't know what is Paleolithic, what is Mesolithic, how will you understand art and culture? This needs to be ingrained in your mind, because students think ancient, medieval, modern is a separate set, art and culture is a separate set. That is not true. Art and culture is part of the larger timeline. So you need to learn it. So which of the statements is correct? Neither 1 nor 2. So in Haryana, we have found near Faridabad the Mangarbani Hills forest, where we found cave paintings, and we have now evidence to believe that it will be the biggest Paleolithic site in the Indian subcontinent, because we are getting Stone Age and references to major industries which are called tool making industries. The word industry is to just argue about how there is a certain area in which they were producing it, but the biggest repertoire or the collection of stone tools are coming from this sector. But what they're actually referring to are these paintings. You would not be able to see it too clearly, but the point is what you see here is very, very beautiful paintings which are being made on the walls. Very beautiful red color, ochre color, and different types of understandings and different types of evidences of the day-to-day culture and the general practices of the Indian subcontinent Paleolithic culture. That is why petroglyphs, this is the word which is used for cave paintings, is petroglyphs. Petroglyphs is the technical term. These are very, very important in that regard. Remember, painting tradition in India starts in the prehistoric period and not during the Ajanta Ellora or what is the Buddhist, the Mahajanpada phase or thereafter. As early as Mesolithic, Paleolithic, Upper Paleolithic period is the specific reference which you will find in the NCERT. It is also linking up with this site also. Upper Paleolithic period is where we actually find the specific reference to the first proper form of what is called paintings, Lakhudiyar and Bhimbetka, the two most important. Now this Mangarbani hills and their caves are now becoming important, but the big, close to 500 different paintings are there in Bhimbetka and in Lakhudiyar. Okay, so this is also clear, should not be a problem for you. Question number 22. With reference to Sabz Burj, which was recently in the news, consider the following statements. The structure is crowned with a blue dome and it's popularly known as the Neeli Chhatri. It is an example of the fusion between Pathani Sultanate and Deccani architectural form. Which of these statements are correct? Now, this structure is again part of the larger Humayun's tomb structure. Again, you would either know it or you don't know it. Recently, it actually has been restored. A very beautiful building, very, very beautiful building, has that Turkish dome, but it is called an elongated dome because the dome itself has a very long neck and then the dome comes in. Again, topped with, a lot of my students would know, an inverted lotus. Inverted lotus means that it comes into the Mughal practice. So here it says Pathani Sultanate. It has nothing to do with the Sultanate and the Pathani period, not even Deccani. It is a big important specimen of Mughal architecture. So here the correct statement is only one. But remember this image, you can see the Humayun's tomb here itself, a very important structure near it, recently again restored by Aga Khan. The point is that it has what is called a four-centered arch also. It also has what is called inverted lotus. It also has arabesque and the concept of what is called the ingenuity of making a dome. They just made it because they wanted to show it off. That is the whole point. If you look at it, it's a very long neck circular dome with a very beautiful bluish tinge. Blue, this comes from Istanbul and it's the Turkish influence in the larger concept. This is how the generic Delhi Sultanate tradition may be coming together with Mughal, but there is nothing to do with Pathani or Deccani. That is why the statement gives incorrect. But even if in the exam you find Sultanate plus Mughal, don't go for the correct option, go for only Mughal because it was made with Persian influence more than Turkish, but it's linked to the Turkish tradition in the larger context. So this is how we have Indo-Islamic culture. It brings in a lot of things, and if you know about anything about the Humayun's tomb itself, you know it is a fusion of Indo-Islamic, Hindu plus what is called Persian traditions with the Star of David being there. Okay. Question number 23. With reference to the Sun Temple at Konark, consider the following statements. King Narasimhadeva I, the great ruler of the Chalukya dynasty, has built this temple. The temple has three images of sun god in three directions of the temple to catch the rays of the sun at the morning, noon and evening. It's a sun temple, so that's the whole concept. So this seems correct and is correct because it is a sun temple, so it will try to keep the sun rays inside the Garbhagriha somehow. Now the point is Narasimha Deva I, a ruler of the Chalukya dynasty. Now you will say, sir, how do I know this? Because you need to know ancient. You need to know ancient India. You need to technically know early medieval, because this is an incorrect statement. He is a Ganga ruler. Ganga dynasty. He is a Ganga ruler. So this here, which is correct? Only second statement. This is to show you the importance of basic ancient medieval, early medieval understanding for an art and culture question, because if you don't know that, the same thing happened in the Chausat Yogini question which came in 2021, when there was a specific reference to a dynasty and then reference to the feature. So please remember, basic timeline of ancient medieval art and culture is linked together, so do not ignore it. Okay. So he is a Ganga dynasty ruler, very, very important, used 1200 artisans to make it in a period of 12 years, very, very long period to create it. The second last question about UNESCO itself. With reference to the Intergovernmental Committee for the Safeguarding of Intangible Cultural Heritage, consider the following statement. This is the one which gives you the intangible tag. The members of the committee are elected by the states parties meeting in the General Assembly according to the principles of equitable geographical representation and rotation. A state member of the committee may not be elected for 2 consecutive terms. The state members to the committee are elected for the term of 5 years, and every 3 years the General Assembly shall renew half of them. Now this is a very technical question, playing with a lot of different words, playing with very technical words. Now a lot of us do learn about them, but we don't learn the specificities about it. So this question is again very, very tricky, because you need to know each and every small detail. So here I am teaching you something about the committee itself. Are the members of the committee elected from the state party meeting of the UNGA, which is General Assembly? Yes. Is it based on equitable geographical representation and rotation, meaning each and every continental representation is there from time to time? Yes, it is. That is the basic ideology. Then are the members of the committee not allowed to have 2 consecutive terms so that they can hog the committee itself? Yes, they cannot be elected for 2 consecutive terms. However, the third statement here is incorrect. The correct one would be 1 and 2. The third statement is incorrect because state members of the committee are elected for a term of 4 years, and every 2 years you have the renewal of half of them. So this again is a very specific reference. It's a difficult question, it's a quizzish question because it's difficult. I'm not saying it's easy, but I have given you this information now, so in the exam it should be easy. So as I said, members are elected for a term of 4 years, every 2 years they are renewed, and no member can have 2 consecutive terms, so as to make sure that equitable geographical redistribution and rotation happens. So from time to time, right now the heritage committees with China, and that is creating a lot of issues with Australia because the Great Barrier Reef has been now given to, or is now been pushed into a heritage tag. I'm not talking about intangible but the tangible heritage sector, where China and Australia politics is playing out at this point of time. Okay, last question. Recently the term Sulawesi was in the news. What is it? It is a prehistoric petroglyph site, a martial arts tradition in Southeast Asia. It is a handicraft tradition of Kashmir, a new type of silkworm. This again is a difficult question because it is based on a specific term which was in the news. But this is how environment plus art and culture plus current affairs comes in, wherein Sulawesi is a term, actually is a prehistoric petroglyph site, and I'll show you the site itself. It's a very beautiful site in Indonesia, and what is happening is that these very beautiful, very old, close to 35,000 years, 39,000 years, we have handprints there, handprints of the prehistoric man and woman are there, along with this very beautiful pig and boar. What we are seeing is that these pictures have survived. These petroglyphs have survived for close to 40,000 years. But now they are becoming more and more dull and deteriorating because of climate change. Because the ambient temperature is increasing, the humidity is increasing, it is leading to these fading away. And this is how environment impacts culture. So this question, remember this word Sulawesi because it is specific reference to a prehistoric petroglyph site. So before I end this session, firstly, I would like to thank you. Thank you for your patience. I hope that you appreciated the way I have tried to interlink visual referencing, videos and images with art and culture, because without that it makes no sense. More than that, if you actually liked the video or learned anything out of it, please do like and share this session and do subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss the Polity sessions on Saturday and Sunday by Sarmat sir himself, wherein we'll be back to the basic subjects again, Polity for Saturday and Sunday. Do subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you don't miss any of our videos. Thank you so much. This was the last session for me when it comes to places in news and art and culture places in news. And I hope that I've contributed in a very meaningful way to your larger journey, and all the best for the exam. I will see you as an IAS officer very, very soon. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.